3, 2. Hello everyone, welcome to Proper, and in today's episode, man, let's start with the best, the new tires. These are the Pan Racer Gravel Kings, and just so you can see the thing here, look at that thing hasn't even peeled off yet. Gravel King Plus, that's that, shield technology. Got them in 38. The next big thing will be switching out the brakes. So I'm gonna put on a more modern style cantilever brake. These were, really kind of cheapo brakes, but they're more modern than the Paul Neo Retros I have on there now. And with these road cartridges, I'm going to be able to run the Het Ardennes black rims that I wanted to use, but that I was having so much trouble getting to work before. Tubeless tape and stand sealant, and then Pinheads. This is kind of like a New York City thing. You gotta have a little extra protection. And here's the bike as it stands now. Now I've kind of showed this in a couple different videos. It's a great bike. It just really is suffering from terrible braking performance. All right, mechanic time. So we're gonna do a couple things to this bike, as I was talking about before in that opening section. So right now I'm just kind of prepping the bike for the work ahead. So I'm removing the old brakes, making sure the posts are tight in the frame, and just kind of going over everything. The total list of what I had to do today. Got to straighten the derailleur hanger, install new brakes. These are the wheels I wanted to use. I've had these Het Ardennes black wheels for probably 4, maybe 5 years now. This is a Clydesdale build, so the head adds an extra 2 spokes to the front and then 2 spokes to the rear, so it just makes them a little stronger. They advertise it for heavier riders, but actually it makes a really nice strong wheel set. And I've never done any service to it, so what I did here is pulled the end caps off. Most hubs you can service like this. Got to the sealed bearings on the inside and just pulled the seals off, and I was really surprised how clean the bearings looked. When you spin the wheels, they still spin really, really well. You don't hear much grit. I can tell the bearings are dry though. So I do, especially if I'm riding this in New York City, riding it in the rain, taking it off-road, I want to give it a nice service now, before I just neglect it further. And so, took the end caps off, removed the seals. If you want to know how to remove seals or work on bearings, I made a video, the previous video to this, and I'll put a link at the end of the video to that video, but I go over how to clean out bearings and really get them nice and, fully cleaned out and re-greased. And that's exactly what I want to do with this wheel set as well. Unlike, in that video I worked on a bottom bracket, in this situation I'm not going to remove the bearings from the hub shell. So I'm just going to use an alcohol-based cleaner. I'm going to use Brake Clean, and I'm just going to spray it upwards so that it drips out. And I'm kind of just standing over a little drip tray here. And I just don't want the degreaser to go in behind the bearing and get stuck or anything like that. And you can see, look at that axle has a little bit of corrosion on it, but for the most part, it looks really good. So that's what the bearing looked like, just remove the end cap and that's that. And you can see there's no real rust. I can't recall servicing these before. So everything looks really, really good. The bearing on the free hub body, it's still very clean. Nothing has really made it past, the seal before the seal, right? So, but anyway, I want to do the same thing with the rear hub. I'm going to remove all the seals and the rubber bits. I'm going to fully degrease and just try to clean out these bearings as much as possible, and then I'm going to re-grease them. And, this is something that, to remove this rear, every hub's going to be a little different. The thing to remember, a lot of hubs, especially if you ride one of the big 5 bikes, Giants, Specialized, a lot of the hubs are DT Swiss based, and those are very, very serviceable. You really should attempt to do a service, or just have this in your mind to have someone do it. Try to do it once a year, maybe. I mean, obviously I went longer than that and everything has been fine, but these hubs are meant to be serviced, so but here we are.
Now,
And I'll let myself do the talking here.
The hub looks like. Now, again, we're using the brake cleaner, alcohol-based, and that is very, very important. But you can see with just a quick application, it really, the brake cleaner does a great job of removing all the grease. And again, really hats off to Head and this bearing company, because the seals have done an incredible job. So this is the rear hub. I have the front wheel. I did that first and it's been sitting, drying. I am going to re-grease it. So I will do that. I'll put that front hub together. Then I will come to this and I will put the rear hub together once this has sat for a little bit to kind of dry out. And then we are ready to set this wheel set up tubeless.
All right, so this is the grease I'm going to use this time. I just got it. It's the Park Tool High Performance Grease. It is blue in color, and that's how you differentiate it, because a lot of the times the other Park Tool grease is green. Not sure what makes it high performance, but I like the idea. And it's a fresh bottle. So what I do is I'm going to put this in a syringe, not with like a needle ending, you'll see in the video in a second here. There it is. So I use a syringe because it lets you, especially with a bearing, it lets you force the grease into the bearing. So even though I'm doing a 50% fill, the grease has been inserted. It's not just sitting on the surface, so it's more grease than you might think. And I don't know if you can see the nozzle on that syringe, but it really fits perfectly in between the two races, and I can just like precision get the grease in there. Do you see that? So the grease is on top of the ball bearings, but I was able to kind of ram it in between as well. So it's a simple hack. I'm not sure where I got these, but you can definitely order off Amazon or wherever your syringes are sold. And it makes a big difference. It really helps. I don't use, it's perfect for this situation with bearings. You wouldn't necessarily, use screws and stuff like that. You certainly could. It keeps it clean. But anyway, so grease in the bearings, very similar to how I did the bottom bracket overhaul. So you can see a 50% fill. That's my number. That's what I think is good. And I will pop the seals back on. And, that wheel is ready to ride. I won't let it go another 4 years, but it's certainly ready to go another year and to do some wet riding and all that. So once I did that, though, got the tires on, I forgot to hit record on the time lapse of setting up tubeless. I kind of have my own technique, but it's nothing too special. I would have liked to have gotten it on video, but it is what it is. These tires went on really, really well. Sometimes tubeless tires, they give you a lot of hassle once the bead pops in. There are sections that haven't popped in fully. Not with these. I did have to use the compressor. If you had a really good pump and you really went for it, I might have been able to do it, but I used the compressor. Boom, they popped right in. I didn't have to pull the bead in. It just perfectly straight the first time out.
So
and let's see what I have to say here.
Step in this build project is to go ahead and start on the
Brakes. So there we go, the new Canties. These are Tektro
CR710s. Excuse the mess.
Removed the old brakes, cleaned off the posts, made sure they are nice and tight. Setting up cantilevers is one of those mechanic skills that it's like wrapping bars, setting up canties, knowing how to glue tubulars. It's just a step. It's a ring in the ladder, because it really does come down to finesse and fine-tuning. They are not, in comparison, disc brakes are a walk in the park compared to setting up any type of cantilever, whether it's a V-brake or linear pull, whatever you got. And the process really is, with every adjustment you make in the initial setup, you're adjusting everything, only fine-tuning one thing. And you kind of work in a circle. You adjust the pad, then you adjust the straddle cable. You go back to the pad, you go back to the straddle cable, then you go to the cable that runs to the straddle cable, and you keep kind of going in a cycle. Ultimately, though, you're going to need to use some sort of toe, which is in reference to the pad not striking the rim completely flat. In an ideal world, you could set it up like that, but 99% of the time you will get some tremendous squealing, or in my case, tremendous shuddering if the pad hits too flat. And you can't just it's got to be a fine tune adjustment. But that's really all it was. So here I am just working on that, and it takes a minute. I mean, it's not quick. Like I said, it really comes down to fine tuning. When I set the brakes up initially, went outside, rode it, terrible squealing in the back and tremendous shudder in the front. So I had to keep coming back in, adjust it a little more, go back out. I probably did that 3 times to get to a point where the bike felt, decent. And then within a couple miles of riding, it really felt good. Time to install the Pinheads, and we will be done. So the Pinheads, you get your own key. I'm sure you've seen this before. You got to register that. And then these will replace the quick release skewers. Bike is extremely smooth. I tweaked the brakes one last time. They're as good as they're gonna get, and it's pretty good. I can live with it. So definitely an improvement there. The tires, definitely an improvement. We are gonna wrap this video up with a bike check. So I don't know the year, but Focus Morris CX bike. I'll start from the saddle. It's a giant saddle. It's the same saddle I have on my giant road bike. I just love it, so I got a second one. Zip seat post, don't even know. Deluxe stem, so that's a bike shop. They're online, check them out. Really, really cool shop. Used to be in Brooklyn, now in California. I've got the Paul front derailleur hanger. Not ideal, but the fork doesn't have an attachment for the the brake hanger, so it's got to go off the steer tube. And that's a Cane Creek slam set headset. I got my God and Famous bar tape, of course, wrapped around that salsa bar, and it's got the perfect amount of flare. I really, really like it. Anyway, that's not the original fork. The original fork cracked at the steer tube, so this is a new, old Focus fork. But you can see there with the, the height of the straddle cable, really nice and low to the tire. Head Ardennes black wheel set, Gravel King, SK Plus tires. And look at that little Pinhead. It actually looks pretty decent aesthetically. I have full housing running from the shifter to the derailleur, and that's because this bike originally was a Di2 model, so it doesn't have the routing or any bosses for running housing. So it's just full housing front and back, SRAM rival, really reliable. It's actually one of the first SRAM group sets I like. I'm not a SRAM guy usually. I'm Shimano all the way. But yeah, look at it. It looks great. I mean, this thing is really ready for the city. You got a lot of potholes in the city. Sometimes you're drafting cars and you don't see them, so you just bash right into them. The bigger tire is really going to help with that. And it looks cool, which is always important. So thank you for watching. Genuinely, I appreciate it. And stay tuned. Comment if you want. Bye.